This video is Change Management, the Reparation Edition. So I started with a thought from another video called They Are Children. So these children look like the children of Bulgaria, the poor children in the ghetto where there are 70,000 people without garbage service, or they look like the kids in the war zone of Gaza. So we're thinking about the children, and then I'm thinking about my little tyke. He was safe in my mother's house in Jamaica across the street from the elementary school. My mother had lost a baby, and my dad didn't have any boys, so that baby right there was my dad's baby. I should have left him with my dad. And that's my grandmother. He was there with her, and he was very happy at that moment. I was about at stage 4 grief when my sister reminded me by sending that picture of him safe in my mother's house in Jamaica. My mother worked in government her whole life, and she bought a house across the street from the elementary school. So, she was aligned with our education. So, the innocence of a child, unburdened, carefree, and thriving. That's how children should have it. Unburdened, carefree, and thriving so they can go ahead and learn in school. So, this is me and my sister. That's the fence that we used to climb to go to the elementary school. There was this fence around the school, it's a cement block fence. And so we had the luxury of just jumping the fence and go across the street to school. So I talk about what happened to me and my sister. Well, we were visited by some Americans in 1967, and the Jehovah's Witnesses organization was introduced to us. We got introduced to prejudice when we went to Daytona Beach. Dad was working for Coca-Cola, and somebody said nigger when we were driving to Morrison's cafeteria and drove back to the white man's house in Daytona. And then we were exposed to people who take things from us. I've been through really bad time having been taken out of my government job at the city of Delray Beach. But my greatest loss is really my little tyke. So I think that I'm from a happy interdependent society. This is what the children on our street look like. And of course, we had a school in front of our house, and then we had all these wonderful kids on the block. And that's me right there with Maxine and Denise. They were a family of like 5 kids. So I was looking it up, and I did see Nihilistic societies and hunter-gatherer societies. I did not see interdependent societies so clearly on the web. I'll do some more research on that. So the Jehovah's Witnesses do a lot of subjugation. The man is the head, and they were telling us we didn't really need a higher education. We would help do construction of kingdom halls. And, the hunter-gatherers culture in the United States is something I got exposed to by coming to the United States to school instead of going to Canada. And I had a lot of people take things from me. But I was only 10 when the Americans came to my parents' house in Jamaica. That's the airport. That's how close it is to my parents' house. So we had a lot of visitors. But I feel like we're interdependent because when we were growing up, that girl right there, her mother worked for IBM in New York while she went to school in Jamaica. She went to school, the co-ed school, Anglican school called Excelsior, where most of the kids went. And then this one and another one, they went to Holy Child, a Catholic school that was very strict, while their mother worked for the court in New York. So I think it's interdependent because we would raise the other kids with us. So every Christmas and many times during the year, we would be together like this, just a lot of little girls. And so I was telling her, one of the girls, that we're like an extension of 9 girls. A 9 means like completeness or connection. So Elon Musk said people are doing evil while they're saying other things. But Yusha Vance also, I watch her a lot on YouTube. She was saying that her husband was expressing misogyny when he called Kamala Harris a childless cat lady, So all the criticism that women get, or the things where you interrupt their career, or you subjugate them, or you disgrace them, or devalue them, or degrade them. That's all misogyny. But recently there was a trick in the city of Delray Beach where migrants were called for their immigration interview, but actually it was just they were just playing a trick on them so they could collect them and arrest them. So we should not play tricks on children. So I want to refer to a kind of misogyny called the art of degrading and subjugating a woman. And in O.J. Simpson's wife, she was killed by a stab on her body, but her face, she also suffered facial mutilation, and Rihanna suffered facial mutilation at the hand of Chris Brown. Now, I consider the facial mutilation in these cases symbolic of destroying somebody's identity. And I guess, facial mutilation would be a worst type of misogyny. So I have to overcome the betrayal because two of these boys in this picture in Jamaica were gifted. One was my son, tested gifted at 6, and my nephew tested gifted, and he's now a PhD in neurosurgery. But he went through Wilmer's High School in Jamaica and went all the way to Oxford and ended up doing his internship at Harvard. And he's a PhD in neurosurgery, and my son's dead. So it feels like betrayal. So there's my nephew. After he went back to his school to thank them, he made a speech because he felt like his high school laid a foundation for his career as a PhD in neurosurgery. So that's part of our value system. We thank our former schools. I'm at FAU today. I'm actually in a classroom because there were people in the computer lab. I didn't really want them to hear this controversial discussion. I didn't want these kids are studying certain subjects, and I didn't want them to be burdened by my issues. So this is us, when we were 10, we were carefree. We had the beach south of us, and we had the hills that we used to climb north of us. We had the school that was just a minute away, just jumped the fence to get there. So we had a carefree, unburdened, and thriving life. So the business model of the Jehovah's Witnesses, when this big white man came to my house, my dad chased him away because Jehovah's Witnesses are so different. They don't celebrate birthday, Christmas, and they keep talking about Jehovah. So my dad chased him away. Then a woman came, and I started reading her Awake magazine because it discussed issues which I used to ask my mother about. And then the Jackson Five came, they were Jehovah's Witnesses. And when they had the concert, I felt that Jehovah had blessed the Jackson Five. They were so talented, and we were able to listen to this concert because of Jehovah's Witnesses. So this is the business model. When Trump was president, the Jehovah's Witnesses sold the Brooklyn buildings to Kushner for $340 million. And there's YouTube videos about that. But what I've come to find out is that George Washington Rutherford, George Washington, the President of the United States, was related to Judge Joseph Rutherford, who was a descendant of his, and it ended up with another president. So it's like from President George Washington to President Trump. And it's just kind of spooky. Anyway, here are children doing construction. That's how Jehovah's Witnesses are. I asked a Jehovah's Witness lady about it, and she said they like to do it. So here's a little girl also doing construction. So I guess it's a mindset. You have 5 meetings a week, and you have a relationship with God, and so they love doing the construction. But they have 23 billion in land and buildings all over the world, and it's all done by volunteer labor. So here's my diploma from FAU. It means a lot to me because I went to 4 colleges for 16 years, 7 of those years full time. So the secret life of Jehovah's Witnesses, how it erupted for me was that I was not allowed in divorce court, but I had a lot of police action. Kind of really unbelievable because now I found out it's off the computer. But this is what they do now. They have this magazines and literature on the stands. When Michael Jackson did Thriller, he had a press conference saying he's no longer a Jehovah's Witness. And then he made this video. They don't really care about us. And he did it in the poor section of Brazil. That's all the poor kids in Brazil. So I feel like Michael Jackson had a lot of music that had messages in it, and he was like the fifth Jehovah Witness I was exposed to. So I like to say we were children. They are children. Los niños, son des enfants, das Kinder, Anya Atfal Hastan. So this was, I also think about all these students here now at FAU, and I hope they can study, whether it's AI, engineering, or medical school, study without being burdened by anything else and be just carefree and thrive. So since I'm grounded in the Jehovah's Witness Church, I told my family that we are actually Jehovah's whistlers because we blow the whistle on everything. So this video is a whistleblowing video. And H means for me Hagen Ranch Elementary School, where my son tested gifted at 6 years old. When he was two, he tried to communicate with me in a very beautiful manner. I won't bore you with it. But H means a lot to me because it's Harborview Primary School across the street from my mother's house. We're sitting on the fence there taking that picture. And that's the interdependent society. These kids, these two right here, Maxine and Dennis, they had a cousin come up from the rural area to help her mother to take care of her five babies. So that's a sign of interdependence. And the way how we had other relatives growing up with us, raised with us, so that it was nine girls, that shows interdependence. So there was reparation for the Holocaust, but I'm thinking about going to court for the reparation for the suffering of my sons and for the death of my sons, for my wrongful termination in my government job, and for my stalking and robbing. So 1956, it passed the Federation Compensation Act, and it covered aspects of compensation for Nazi injustices. And there was also an organization, ICHEIC, began its work in 1998 on the reparation for the Holocaust. So it says that as of September 2022, an estimated 280,000 Holocaust survivors were living in countries around the world, and the money for them includes 535 million in direct payments to survivors. So when Elon Musk joined Donald Trump at the White House, he was taking this communication video doing a Heil Hitler. It's a little disturbing to me, but I feel like AI and education and the country as a business is actually the higher purpose of Donald Trump and Elon Musk, even though they are putting signs of Hitler and the Holocaust into the whole process. So 2021, Trump said, drink Lysol. I watch him every day to see what he's doing. He's treating the country like a business. But Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, said that we have to be subjected to international law. So 2021, Donald Trump said drink Lysol, and then 2024 he said use them up, but I don't know who he's referring to, who should be used up. Then he said that everything he was doing, USA will have some little pain. So 2025, I'm in this paradigm with USA. The result of it is a lot of loss for me. So it's like a Holocaust. And I feel like a lot of people, like a lot of police, are practicing the kind of conduct, misogyny of the Holocaust. And if a leader practices to exterminate or permit genocide, the country will be lost and the children will be killers. So this is a chart, a Holocaust chart of the years, how many were killed. They even took their rugs and the Jews complained, and how much money they accumulated. It was like $775 million put in Swiss bank accounts. I pulled that chart off the internet. So when Trump said use them up, it's that same kind of value system that I hear. but I'm watching the other things that he's doing. So his history is 1869, Frederick Trump came to Germany. 1933, the Holocaust began. And then the Trumps came to the United States and had a poorhouse in Missouri. But CNN also says that they had two brothels. Then they went back to Germany and got some of the money from the extermination of the Jews and set up the Trump Empire. However, presently, regarding the court system, I was not uncomfortable with the American court system, but I felt like the court system treated Trump like a clown. Trump said they weaponized the court because he's in and out of court. The court reversed Roe versus Wade, and Trump said we won the case at The Hague. But I felt that the case at The Hague that we want to take there, we will win. So I've been in communication with Colombia, Guatemala, Venezuela, Brazil, Cuba, all the countries where they have these people being deported. And the King of Jordan said that we have to have a global accounting because horrors will be normalized. That's why we have to have a global accounting. J'aimerais engager un avocat spécialisé dans les droits de l'homme international. Mon cas a été présenté à la presse au Canada. Je suis le porte-parole de les 5 groupes dans l'action en justice contre les États-Unis. J'ai tout examiné, j'ai beaucoup de preuves. So the United Nations, I try to communicate with the different departments of the United Nations, and I noticed that we cross the lines of politics, business, government, and public service. They cross them back and forth, and but I guess the worst misogyny was for me to be bullied out of government. And the IMF practiced for 50 years, especially with Jamaica, an impoverishing type of practice of funding with strings in the United States, which built infrastructure projects in many countries, which impoverished the countries with debt. So here's the debt map here in the Caribbean. You can see there are millions, 260 million here and there. Jamaica is 787 million. So it's pretty bad. And you can imagine Bulgaria and Burundi, countries like that. That's why Bulgaria has no garbage service in some places. So the only reason why we're able to see that the IMF was so predatory is because China is funding infrastructure projects. China is completing infrastructure projects in 2 countries which I know of, and the terms are better and the interest rate is lower. So that really exposes the IMF as predatory, and the United States, as their biggest string with the IMF, should have taken responsibility for that. However, I have an issue at this time because all these countries, I've been communicating in Spanish and Portuguese with all these countries where people are being deported. So my issue is this: I've had such bad interactions with African Americans, starting with when I started 2001 working for the city of Delray Beach. My brake line was cut. My Fourth Amendment rights were violated. I bought a condo, they were in there, they damaged to the plumbing, kitchen plumbing. Then I bought a townhouse, they were in there, they did damage to kitchen plumbing. Then an African-American state trooper was terrorizing me. He was on my job and he ticketed my car back to back and towed it. And he was just in my face, and he did all this off the computer because the state troopers checked my driver's license and said there were no prior calls. So here are my complaints. I don't know if there has been a coup d'etat. I still see elements of a coup d'etat because the African Americans are only 13.7% of the population. And I know some Haitians look like African Americans and some Jamaicans look like African Americans, but their conduct is sort of a bragging loud conduct. And so I noticed that when they communicate with each other, they have these Obama free phones. And I feel like I was affected by the OFNA, I call it, that's the acronym. It's Obama free phone, nigger, prey, conquest, bragging, gang stalking, bullying. And the African Americans are only 13.7% of the population, but they seem to spread their culture and their value system. I feel like they're thuggish, loud, bullying, and savage in conduct and communication. I feel like they have low IQ because they're always thinking about sex, sports, music, not a very good value system. I feel like there's an innate betrayal symptoms in Africa and USA displayed by African Americans. They practice the art of degrading women in word and music, and Kanye West has his wife almost nude all the time, and also has him has her doing oral sex for the media videos. Now, the coup d'état, I see this bragging when they call African American called me from Broward County about a job. He said, "We are the government." And sometimes African Americans said they are replacing you. They're very direct towards me. It's antagonistic towards me specifically, and I really avoid African Americans. I really do. And my free phone service was being cut on and off, and it must be the African American police African American sheriff and state trooper who did bad things to me. I feel like the African Americans don't like itself because they prefer whites and they want to get money and marry white women. It's impossible to unite Africa and impossible to unite African Americans in USA. And China prepared the infrastructure by replacing the IMF on African projects in the 2020s. So they have everything is ready. The bridges, the roads, railway, everything was done by China, ready for the African Americans to be deported back to Africa. And robots will do their work better. And right now we have a robot in the AI sandbox at FAU, and we have Donald Trump bringing in the Toyota robots. So I don't like the African American police gangs. I don't like how the two African American sheriffs addressed me. They came on a job north part of Palm Beach County, and then I was terminated. I don't like how they communicate with me. I'm not African American, and I feel like I'm from an interdependent society. And I noticed that my Jamaican banker was pushed out, and an African American was there sitting there, and I don't like it. I complained about it. Where's my Jamaican banker who I trust? Then I had a credit union account, and they took $25 out of the account and then closed the account called I Think Financial Credit Union. I know Nigerians are also doing a lot of support for African Americans because President Obama's family is Nigerian. I feel like sex and money are more important than human rights and the safety of women and children because my ex-husband pretty much locked me out of my children's life and locked me out of the properties. Very intolerant. And when they bullied me out of my job at the city of Delray Beach, up to 8 years later, residents came down to Boca to tell me that people could not do the work. Why would they bully me out of a job if nobody else could do the work? I was the one trained by the two attorneys. So I find myself, I just seen an African American guy the other day. I felt like I was stalked because I moved in a south direction and then I saw him. I feel like I might have been stalked. And the only reason why he would stalk me is to rob me because I steal my phones or something because I am not his friend. I stay away from African Americans. And it's because since 1978, I feel like we have conflict. So they're violating my human rights and my civil rights. And I noticed that it must be nationwide, and because I had negative interactions from Broward County to North Palm Beach County. I feel that there was a coup d'etat from the time of President Obama, and I still see little power, internal coup d'etat signs, even with the charity I'm involved with changing lives, and the owner is Armenian, but the African Americans seem to force their power over some sectors of his organization. And their value system is based on deception and a barbaric taste level. So that's a lot of complaining, but I already sent this video to Donald Trump, but I have more now to say. So the IMF strings the headquarters, they have to pay rent. It's in Washington, D.C., and U.S. has a high amount of funds in the IMF funds, so they have high influence on the terms and the strings. And so the USA should have been more responsible for the problems that countries that needed bridges and roads and airports and railways and everything. Everybody who used the IMF, the United States should have sort of protected them a little more, take some responsibility for it because there's so much poverty in the world. And so I feel that the IMF is predatory, and hunter gatherers seem to display somewhat of predatory action. IMF terms were impoverishing, and then I had to see the Jehovah's Witnesses properties because they own those properties. We do not get anything from them. I was with them for 30 years. I do not get any money from their properties. And I feel like families get decimated in the Jehovah's Witness organization, like my family was decimated. So, United Nations has a 2030 end poverty agenda, and I think that although Trump is saying he doesn't like the United Nations, I feel like they should be the one world global poverty manager because Trump is now stopping the U.S. aid because the U.S. aid was doing a lot of transgender operations and really strange things. But so we need to manage poverty in the world. So I feel like there's also business models and some kind of net system, which affected me too. And like for instance, you have the failed banks, and then you see the new Paradise Bank in Boca Raton, a huge building being built at Spanish River Boulevard and Federal Highway. Then you have net assets like Elon Musk bought Twitter. He paid no rent while he was there and used those funds to fund Tesla and SpaceX. I feel like my children's life, there was a net in it because my ex-husband must have spent 75,000 or more taking care of those children, but he had life insurance and he went to the personal injury attorney, and I went to court also. I did not fight him in court. And so there's a kind of net influence in there which left my ex-husband pretty wealthy from suing with his personal injury attorney. Then I see the insurance action, Insurance Net, with Investments Limited. They had an accident in the Winfield Plaza, and then they make an insurance claim. They had another building up there at Spanish River Boulevard. They made another insurance claim, and all of this is about net, what you end up with at the end of everything. So this is the new Paradise Bank. It's really tall. It doesn't show you the color of it, but it shows how big it is. This is the list of failed banks. So net in the big man's world, you have net income, net present value, net profit, net margin. And Elon Musk said, you have no friends, no emotion, just the color of money. You know, this is the man who sold me my townhouse. I was very glad for it. He told me I would not have gotten that townhouse if it wasn't for him. He and his friends built a $8 million shopping center. I don't know, his associates are business partners or whatever, but somebody else came in and pushed me out of government. I don't know if he was involved in it, but I can do other things because, like I said, I went to college. I didn't study political science or public administration. I studied business, so I can do other things. But it's the net. I feel like my children died in an accident, and from the court and the attorney, I end up with this townhouse. This is the $8 million shopping center. They took out the DCF and built that. And then while I work for the city, I bought a condo in that building right here. Then that developer helped me get this townhouse. I was in there for 8 years because I had like 8 people visiting me for 8 years, interrupting my life and my working, going to school, and paying 2 mortgages. However, so that's how I net out of this situation. And then there's a Jehovah's Witnesses net, which gives them, after coming to Jamaica in 1967, they net 23 billion in land and buildings all over the world. And this is the one that is sold to Kushner when Trump was president. So here's the culture. We have the big men, the big developers of Palm Beach County, and Trump has his house, Mar-a-Lago, his mansion, Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach County. So I'm right in the big man's culture, and this is what they're doing. Here's the thing, map of Boca. I don't even know what it means. And there's this other one. I've never seen them before in these cities. This is Delray and this is Boca. So in the big men's world, and Trump is the leader of the big men, this is what's going on. But the deportation that he's doing and the tariffs on these countries, he's making a lot of enemies, and he admit that he is. But the migration will end with the end of poverty. So I really contacted the United Nations and I said to them, I'd like to work on that 2030 end poverty agenda because I believe I have some ideas about the funding and sustainability for people would help. And so I know people would not come to the United States if their country was there was equity in their country and opportunity. They would not come here. So all these people being deported are just victims of the system. So here's the 10 countries that one first list of all the countries that 1.4 million people are being deported from. And I don't know if when he said use them up, I did not know if he meant these people. But here's some poor countries. That's Bulgaria have a ghetto of 70,000 people in a slum with no garbage service. That's Burundi. They have to have donkeys instead of cars. So we think about the greed, waste, misogyny in the world when there's people who just need the basics. So we also have the United Nations Joint Human Rights Office, which now has a mobile unit. It goes out to the countries. I have contacted them also because international law is now mobile and all countries, 196 countries, should be subject to international law. So Donald Trump said that many world leaders call him and say they hate him. Well, this deportation is very painful. And USA is only 4.2% of the world's population. And it has developed misogyny, and now they're deporting 1.4 million people. There's other evil acts, and 10%, only 10% of the world is white. So this is who is doing all this stuff. 95% of the world population is watching what he's doing and watching the United States. So here's a trick that they played in Del Rey's. They tell them, come for your immigration interview when they think they're going to be getting a green card, but in fact, they're getting a deportation arrest. So I am actually in communication with 25 countries because we know poverty is the enemy and poverty causes these people to migrate. So World Trade Center is now called One World Trade Center. In 1985, we had the Schengen area. 1993, we had the European Union. 2001, we had the One World Trade Center. 2008, China replaces IMF in global infrastructure projects. 2020, we had COVID. 2024, Trump admits U.S. courts are weaponized. 2025, we should have one world court system. And 2030, we should have one world poverty manager. So 2001, One World Trade Center was established. And as I said, we should have one world court system, our legal system, our international law system, one world poverty manager, because US aid is now invalid and the American court is invalid. So this is what the ICC judges look like. This one is Khan. He's doing a case with the Gaza, and he's doing a case with the Philippines. And of course, Justin Trudeau says we must abide by international law. And this is an ICC cause of action. I feel like the deportees have a cause of action. So I've been in communication and I have some evidence here on these videos. There used to be 8 ICC judges and one was Jamaica. Now there are 18 ICC judges. And since World War II, our King Jesus gave the master, he gave the United States the biggest chunk of trade, control, and most reserves of US dollars in banks all over the world because US was given that as the servant of the master. And so the United States came out pretty rich with all these. This looks like, let's see, that's billion, 770 million, billion, 6 trillion, almost 7 trillion in US dollars as reserves in banks all over the world. So USA, if they're going to lead the world, they have to be responsible for the poverty in 196 countries, but I think Donald Trump is clean up USA first. I hope that's what he's doing. I watch him on YouTube every day. And if he takes back the USA, then I have a video on YouTube, a woman can't even go to the clinic. Then I feel like the corrective would be US $50 billion verdict and $50 billion for four groups, which is, I will tell you who the groups are. So first, my reality is that between Thursday, January 9, 2024 and Sunday, January 13, 2024, I've had stalking and tracking. I heard some African American make a comment to keep her desperate. And I've been robbed and things like that. But this occurred because they bullied me out of government. Now, I've been in government since I'm 17. And I had a good written evaluation, but I was bullied out of the city of Delray Beach, which is a whole other video. But October 9, 2025, for my Jamaican banker, who I trusted, was pushed out by an African American banker, at which time I communicated with the president on the Internet and Banking Commission. Then I called the state, I called the food stamp office, and her IQ was so low, or she believes that nobody would be offended. But she was so excited that the staff, you call her about food stamp, she said Norma left. So she's talking about a white woman no longer with the city of Delray Beach. Of course, I was pushed out also, which I feel like ever since they killed O.J. Simpson's wife, all the way to Obama becoming president up to now, I feel like all that is internal and external coup d'etat arrest looking for power. But I feel like I was listening to that and now I write it here to let you know that it's very intrusive. So I feel like some permission was given to Obama because he helped kill Osama. I think so because this is Dick Cheney. I did the screenshot exactly how it was on the screen, permission structure. I feel like the white America, which is only 10% of the population of the world is white. Only 4.2% of United States is population of the world is only 4.2% American. So they give this permission to these 13.7% of their population, which is African Americans, to do these things. So I have to go to court. I spoke with different departments at FAU and different heads of departments, and it's been very painful and intrusive. But I feel it's another kind of permission because I was working in Boca. I work on Bitcoin as well as I were working in Winfield Plaza. So 6:45 a.m. Saturday, March 18, 2022, two sheriffs came in Boca Raton to have a discussion. But they are in the jurisdiction of Boca Raton Police. And I've been in Boca, this is 2022 and it's 2024 now. So it's like I've been in Boca about 4 or 5 years. But the sheriff was here. So now the permission led rise to this off now, I call it Obama free phone, pre conquest, bragging, nigger, gang stalking, bullying. And I did see an African American stop me where I was going yesterday and I didn't like it. I felt like the bus driver was watching me too. And I felt like the people was watching me. You know, the police can track me if they want. But I don't certainly like these people who they're not my friends or my associates. They just happen to be in some places where I go. And I call the permission structure WAPA, why allow the permission of attacks. So Monday, December 30, 2024, a state trooper was parked on Federal Highway. So I approached him and I said, you know, the FBI said that they were investigating me. That's why they did damage on these properties. And there was this interaction with the African American state trooper. And he said, give me your driver's license. And he took my driver's license and he checked it and he said, no prior calls. And so this indicates that the violation of my Fourth Amendment rights and the damage, the pictures of which I sent to the FBI, were done off the computer. So that's the worst part of a coup d'etat, where an African-American male in a state trooper uniform using a state trooper car would violate somebody or practice misogyny. So I had these two properties I worked 3 jobs and bought the condo up here. I was so proud, it felt like a hug. And then the developer helped me to get this townhouse here. I was there 8 years, but I was bullied out of the city of Delray Beach. And as I said, the people there could not do my work because I was trained by 2 attorneys. This is what the coup d'etat looks like in the charity owned by an Armenian billionaire and his wife. This man is the spiritual director and he empowers this dude for a section of the charity. And that's what an internal coup d'etat looked like at the time of Napoleon 1799. This is an external coup d'etat. This is at the time of Napoleon. This is outside, and that's who was victimizing me and ticketing my Honda back to back and things like that. So the reason why I called it a paradigm, and it reminded me of the Holocaust, but the reason I'm using the word coup d'etat is because the Republicans, I took a screenshot because they say they're going to have a soft coup d'etat, and they're using Project 2025 to do the soft coup d'etat. And Kamala and Maya and Mina, I've tried to communicate with them everything that happened to me ever since I was impacted at 10 years old by Americans. I tried to communicate with them to get a full picture, to see things in context because they are attorneys. Kamala Harris, Maya Harris, and Mina Harris are all attorneys. So the probability scenario is very evident. You see, you have 31 million rich in the United States, and we have 300 million who have of limited value. So we see Trump already reduced the taxes for the 31 million rich, especially the entrepreneurs and business owners. And we hope that having been in the United States as long as I have, he will have a global perspective and an inclusive perspective on what he does. But the probability is that many will get hurt. So this is the art of degrading and violating a woman again. I just have this picture with Kanye West. He's very popular with African Americans, but his wife is doing oral sex and she's always walking around looking like a whore. And I expressed my anxiety about the misogyny and the things in the public that show misogyny, which really destroys a woman's identity by facial mutilation. So now, Meghan Markle went to the United Nations, but first she spoke to Gloria Allred, Linda Ellaby, and Hillary Clinton and Procter and Gamble about the psychological attacks on women. And so I had psychological attacks as well as toxic workplaces. So I'm having a pretty bad time. But when I work online, I'm not really being impacted in that way. And when I really have to say that on YouTube, any question people want to ask me, they need to go on YouTube to find the answer because I'm trying to put everything in context. So the delegation is Caribbean Diaspora Lives Matter, Time Done, Limited Value, and the deported who have been treated inhumanely. So I'm contacting those people, and Caribbean Diaspora is online, and I've communicated with them. The previous video, this one has been developed completely. I don't think there's anything more painful to put in this video or anything more to explain more or research more. I think it's enough now. This is about reparation. The organization called Time Done for people who are unfairly put in jail or prison or spend too much time in jail or prison. Limited Value, that's Officer Order in Seattle. The graduate student was killed, the Indian graduate student, and they said she was of limited value, just got a check. So that's sort of defining 300 million Americans who do not have big money as of limited value too. So that's a little concern. And then there's the videos of the deported going in planes from the military or planes from their country. And as the President Petro of Colombia said, they should be treated humanely. But sending them to Guantanamo Bay is a prison of torture. So we have some evidence that they're treated inhumanely. They have loss and abuse. Here's an example of one woman. She said they took her documents, her phone, and they almost took her baby. You can't see it so well on the video, but I cut this and put it in the video as evidence. And of course, this is Guantanamo Bay. Really bad. It's a place of torture. So this lady is talking about conditions in Guantanamo Bay. And there have been protests around the United States because of the way they round up the people. I called the number for ICE just to find out what the list looks like. But they said go online or something like that. But so Americans are doing what they do best is protest. Yes, here's 2025 protests. They protest in Washington. They protest all over the country. So this is some Spanish, and I won't go into it right now on this video, but anybody who I've had to translate my emails into Spanish and Portuguese, Arabic, and French. So we must have communication with the groups. We must reach out to victims. We need to collect evidence and videos. We need to organize Zoom calls. We need to assure deported that UN 2030 End Poverty Project agenda will heal the world and give equity. And that also BRICS is also bringing equity to the world. We want to contact the numerous pro bono international human rights attorneys. We have to have a delegation to the attorneys. We have to have a delegation to the ICC. So the ICC had a verdict of $900 million. This is just the case. I put it on here. It's really research and put in evidence. And from this global standpoint, US 50 billion is really a fair verdict for the purpose, because Caribbean diaspora and Time Done has been around a long time, and Caribbean Diaspora Lives Matter is really coming out of Black Lives Matter, and these organizations have been complaining for decades. So my complaints, my problems started in 1967 when they brought that pain and that mishandling of my son and mishandling of myself. That's my little tyke right here. And his abuse and murder. And this is what I call moments with God. I only have 2 black slides. Moments with God. My son in my mother's house, I could have saved him if I left him there, but it's looking back, it was a moment with God, and he was happy. I should have left him with my grandmother there, and my mother had somebody to help her in the home. And that house was across the street from the elementary school. That's just what he needed. My little tyke. But what was taken from me was my little tyke. My 4th government job, my condo, my house, my car, my health. So I have a lot of pain. I don't want to bore you. I just want to go to the court. First of all, the wrongful termination. I've been in government since I was 17 in the summer. I worked for the government of Jamaica. 18 in the summer, I worked for the government of Jamaica. I worked for the European Union. I worked for the state, and then I worked for the city, where I went through wrongful termination, and I do have written evaluation, 5-year written evaluation. But I lost these 2 properties, condo and my lovely luxury townhouse. And, you really have to, when you get to my age, you have to really recognize where you have made mistakes, okay? But, South Africa was a country that was exploited for the diamonds in that country. And so a lot of people, there was a diamond mine that just collapsed and 6 people died. So it's worse than slavery. So they have the words of this song. Blame yourself for trusting them.
Suspect everybody. Try to tell people about your vision. Siwezi totaura imatsuka.
So I feel like I've been exploited since I was 10 years old, back at my parents' house by that Jehovah's Witnesses business model. And so it's very hard for me to trust anybody. So you might say I trust nobody, but I'm still networking with people because I want to acknowledge those four entities. Caribbean Diaspora Lives Matter, which includes my sons who were abused and killed, time done, people who have been arrested, put in jail or prison unfairly, or given too much time in prison or jail, and then the limited value and also the deportees. So this is another moment in God. That's why this looks so dark, because within 2,000 feet, I have three properties. There's the vacant lots in Boca Raton, which a homeless could tend these properties. These properties were used for something productive, organic farms or something productive or construction. And then we have the property of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and the Jehovah's Witnesses align themselves with Trump Kushner's by selling that $340 million property in Brooklyn. But when Trump was president the first time, they sold it to him, to the Kushners. And then I see the property of the president of FAU has like 10-acre property with a mansion on it. So you see the contrast, and all these three, you have to, what do they represent really? Is what I'm looking at. Just within 2,000 feet, all these different properties. So, as I say, I have complaints, and I also am putting everything in context. I have heard people say abusive things like they are using her. I hear African Americans said they are replacing her. I hear a lot of offensive comments in the community, and I guess if I was still wealthy, I would not hear that. It's something like karma, and I feel like the United States was given a lot by the Master, King Jesus, at the end of World War II, and all trade in the world is governed by the U.S. except China now is trying to get in the Panama Canal to control some and the reserves of US dollars in all the banks all over the world. And this was given since World War II so that the US dollar is so of such greater value than the UK pound. So the UK pound is 1/12 of the value of the US dollar. So the United States, just in the Boca area where I'm walking, I see how they waste a lot of water. Well, it's a process drainage process, which is wasting water. But they have the water. A lot of places don't have water. This was a very bad waste. It was an accident. A pipe was blown Monday, December 23, 2024, again in Boca Raton. These are all the vacant lots, especially the lots by the train which runs from, I think, Miami all the way up to New York. All along the train line, there's land which could be used to do something for the homeless or those of limited value. They could plant the crops, and it would also be a sound barrier for the train because the train makes a lot of noise. And there's some more pictures of the land. And then I used to work in Winfield Plaza, and at that place they put this plastic in the trash instead of recycling, and they don't recycle the cardboard and plastic. So, in Europe there's a zero waste culture, which means 1% of waste in landfills, but United States just waste everything. And also, which I know, signs that the United States is so rich is all the equipment. I don't know if you can see that big old tractor there, big old tractor there, that big old tractor there. I consider them very beautiful engineering machines, but they're very expensive. I don't really know the price. I would guess $400,000 for a tractor like that. But those kind of equipment, They do irrigation, clear land for crops, water channels, and reservoirs. And these are just sitting around Boca Raton with no man hours not being used. And poor countries would benefit so much from these kind of machines. So I found more machines. I've seen a lot of wheelbarrows and machines even around the university. What could be accomplished in man hours in poor countries? And these machines lay waste, just not being used. They also waste food in the United States. I see food many times. I saw the Pollo Tropical. I've seen other meals just sitting around Boca Raton too. And then this is the mansion, much like Donald Trump's mansion at Mar-a-Lago. Well, he has robots at his mansion now. So 31 million rich people in the United States, they live very well on these large properties. And these are the big men of the world. They love infrastructure projects. And we can never think like a big man of the world, but Donald Trump is talking to us on YouTube so we can hear what he says. And here's Elon Musk, who is influencing him. And Elon Musk found some things. He found USAID was wasting money, and he found that Social Security pays people who are 150 years old, which are really they're paying dead people. So in the big man's world, and we're living in the big man's world. And we see this is the big man's world. Dubai in 1990 was like this, and then Dubai looks like this. That's what big men care about. Trump said that other countries are calling him to say they hate him, but we see that Boca is doing something and Delray Beach is doing something. So I'm hopeful that the thing they're doing will affect some of the people in the four groups. Now, in the big men's world, they don't need us. They just brought a robot to the AI sandbox in FAU library. So the robots are coming. They don't need us to do the work. That's the first FAU robot in the sandbox, and they have the big AI building. So I've watched robot videos today, many seminars and many events all over the world showing the new robots, humanoid robots, etc. These is a nurse robot, a construction robot. And if we look at what big men do, Kim Jong two, he had allowed 10% of the population of North Korea to survive a Holocaust. And this girl told us about it. She was a victim of sex slavery and she's reporting everything. And then Trump has a history of the Holocaust and taking 775 million. But we are looking at the right side of everything. And the left side of it is the analytical side. Your left brain is the analytical, global accounting side. So even though Elon Musk is hiring Hitler, he did find money from US aid that can be used for something else, and it is finding Social Security, which can be used for something else. So I didn't want to go over this too much, but Monday, December 30, 2024 was when that white state trooper told me that there were no prior calls on my driver license. That means, in one way, there is no evidence on the computer. They can't print it to show that this African American state trooper was violating my Fourth Amendment rights and terrorizing me and towing my car. But, judges have high IQ. So I also have witnesses in my family. So robots will stop off the computer outrageous government conduct. This is a police robot dog, and this is what the African American police was using to terrorize me. State and sheriff. So my issue is, will they get away with it? And I guess they are thinking about what they can get away with, because they seem to be bragging because down in Broward they did something to me which affected my health, and somebody was referring a back bus driver up in North Palm County was making reference to the same kind of physical abuse and that type of physical abuse. And when I was working for the city of Delray Beach, a black director had taken a class at Harvard, and the Obamas were from Harvard, and there's a Harvard African American professor. So I don't know if some of the African American coup d'etat was coming out of Harvard, but it's only 13.7% of the population of the US is African Americans. But I just feel so bombarded by it, and I feel so hurt by it. So Trump has had Elon Musk, and Elon Musk hired three very smart engineers to help him with his audit, and we see all of the things he's discovering, and Senator John Kennedy is also looking at these funds too. So at this time, I will say one positive thing is that Donald Trump is encouraging the AI plants to have adjacent energy plants. So there were two permits for energy plants that he pushed through pretty quickly. And the AI plants and the energy plants, you need more energy for the AI. So here's the robot. He formed an alliance with Japan. So he has a friend, Japan. And Japan gave us Toyota a long time ago and gave us Dr. Denman. And we know Japan is in the right direction because this is the Ponyo robot and it's tested, but there are many countries, even the United States, coming out with robots. But he's exchanging gas for Toyota, and that's a good thing. And here's the FAU AI robot. And Trump says we are just boys and girls. And we know Obama was bisexual, but his children said they knew he was straight. But the lady who pushed me out of the city of Delray Beach, her husband was a state registered sex offender. So I don't know what she didn't like about me, but I am putting my side of the story on video. And we know that US aid and social security is being cleaned up. And we're getting the energy plans for the AI plants. Now, Senator John Kennedy said there was a spending pouring. This is another list of money that was spent by Biden. Well, we have women of valor like Kamala Harris, Maya Harris, Mina Harris, Abir Saj in Lebanon, and I'm one of six daughters. My daddy started training me at 9 years old. Me and my daddy are Cuban fighters. Email me at emmt@gmx.com. Call me at 728-777-5959. The delegation is putting itself together at Facebook. Delegation ICC UNJHR Office, which is the United Nations Joint Human Rights Office, which is sending out mobile units. Or you can have court in your country. This is in memory of my little tyke, my one true love. I will love you forever.